I live in a small town near the ocean in Northern California. For those of you who have been in the area, I'm sort of near Fort Bragg and Mendocino. Like all of the towns around here, my town started to support the loggers that cut down all the forest post-gold rush. Most days it's beautiful in a dreary sort of way. Lots of mist and ocean breeze. Other days it can get pretty depressing. A lot of people move away because they can't deal with the lack of sun. It has never really bothered me. Back around the turn of the century, one of the logging magnates who lived in the area got it into his head to build a hotel. It wasn't like the bed and breakfast which now dawn the coast. From what I could tell, it was more like a retreat for the wealthy of San Francisco. A lot of people wanted to get out of the city after the big 1906 quake, so they flocked to the area for some rest and relaxation. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called the Atterbury Hotel. I'm too young to have ever seen the hotel in its heyday. Most of what I know about it comes from what you hear just growing up in my town. These days, what is left over of the hotel from the fire of '45 still towers over the main street from a seaside cliff just north. All 5 stories are painted white, including the bell tower built high up in the center of the facade. I'm sure many years ago, only the wealthy and privileged would get to stay there. But now, the only people who check in are tourists who don't know any better, and, well, me. Everyone else prefers to stay away. I don't think it's ever been renovated. I guess I've always found the romance in the old behemoth, or maybe something called to me. But after I moved back home from college, I checked into the hotel with the intention of staying for a week or two while I found an apartment. I ended up staying for 3 months and counting. They let me pay week to week, which is nice as I'm still unsure of where I'll end up. It's cheap and, for the most part, clean. I do have to deal with some roaches and a weird old bellman who walks around at all times of the night, but it's okay with me. I just enjoy coming back home to the old lobby and elevator. It's fun to imagine how it used to be back in the good old days, when men and women arrived in Model Ts and drank champagne on the red velvet lounge chairs. You could still see the glimmer that used to be here in the dusty chandeliers, cracked crown molding, and tarnished silver banisters. Sometimes, when I can't sleep at night, which is getting more and more frequent, I like to go exploring. Not all of the floors are open to the hotel guests, but given that I am a resident, I like to think I'm above those rules. For the first couple of months I stuck to the main floors. One time I even discovered an indoor pool. The pale teal tiles which lined it were practically all broken and watered stains mirrored the walls and floors, but I like to think I could see how it used to look when it was new and gleaming. It was only a couple of weeks ago that I started exploring deeper. I bet not many of you realize how much goes on behind the scenes of a big hotel like this, but let me tell you, it's insane. At the Atterbury, several floors of pipes, storage, and who knows what descended underneath the ground floor, so no one had to see the hustle and bustle of working-class employees. I discovered the underground labyrinth one night when I woke up from a nightmare and needed to walk off some adrenaline. A walk around the hotel usually can calm down my racing mind, so I put on my sneakers and shirt and grabbed my headlamp. The lobby was empty, which was pretty usual. Only a few townfolk work here these days, so I decided to check out what was behind the check-in counter. Who would know? There wasn't much in the back room, just a wall of dusty old keys, stacks of files, and a black door. Before I even touched the door, I could feel a damp breeze coming from the crack, and identified it as the source of the exceptionally pervasive, musty odor that clung on to the lobby. Behind the door was a wooden staircase which led to another landing below. Broken furniture littered the ground, mostly old office chairs and a scuffled coffee table. The door below was heavy and I struggled to unjam it from its frame. It popped open loudly, exposing another dark hallway beyond. I felt my heart begin to race, which was usual. Most of the time when I explored the hotel, I felt sort of calm. After all, the hotel is only a mile or so from my childhood home. It was like exploring my backyard, but this was different. It was like I was entering a whole other state, far away from where I just was. Do you ever feel like you're not you in the middle of the night? Like your mind is taken over by someone more impulsive and somehow more numb? That's how I felt right then, like I was aware that the daytime me would have huffed back into my room, but somehow my feet were already stepping into the black. The door opened into a long cement hallway. I couldn't tell how long because my light could only reach so far, but the sounds from my footsteps seemed to echo on forever. Dampness penetrated my bones and I felt both hot and cold at the same time. I'm sure I was just imagining things because, as I mentioned, I was feeling kind of out of it. The light from the lobby filtered down to the open door so I could find the door again if I got lost in the dark hallway. But even so, I mentally noted its location before setting off. There wasn't much to look at. Pipes followed the corner of the hall and occasionally there was a broken piece of furniture or pallets of dusty cans of food. I remembered the nasty meatballs I ate at the nearly empty restaurant upstairs the other day and shuddered. I continued for another few minutes and had just decided to turn back when I heard a sound from far down the hallway. It was like a hissing, high and penetrating. It wasn't a snake because the hissing didn't stop. It just got louder and eventually deeper. It got so deep that it began to reverberate in my chest. I stopped dead in my tracks and felt sweat drip down the sides of my face. I hadn't realized I was sweating. I hadn't realized how hot it was. The hiss was no longer a hiss but a sigh, coming closer. Finally, my instincts kicked in and I ran back towards the door. Whatever it was switched on my survival mode and I knew if I was going to stay alive, I needed to get the hell out of there. It was probably a fifth of a mile away, but I was still too far to see it. As I ran, the sound stopped abruptly and it was silent, save for the noise of my sprinting. I had a brief moment of relief before I heard the worst sound of all, other footsteps. I was running as fast as I could, but the footfalls sounded like they were right behind me, my shoes slapping against the damp cement. It wasn't just one person either. It sounded like at least 10 people sprinted behind me. I didn't dare turn around. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe they were chasing me, but I didn't care. Finally, I saw the door still open come into view. I've never been a runner, but I was going so fast I practically flew inside and slammed the door behind me. As soon as it closed, the door shook with the impact of several bodies running at full speed. I fell back against the broken office furniture and prayed to God the door would hold. After a moment, the slamming stopped, and all was quiet. Only my heavy breathing and the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the lobby broke the silence. I felt like sobbing or screaming or just plain passing out. I stayed like that for a good 5 minutes before I heard the wooden staircase creak with someone's body weight.
"What are you doing here?"
the old bellman asked as he peered down at me. I jumped as if electrocuted. I'm sorry, I sputtered as I ran by him toward the lobby. I had no idea how to respond. How could I even begin to describe what had happened? I made it back to my room in record time and slammed the door behind me. The sun was just beginning to rise. How long had I been down there? I spent the next few hours trying to calm down but wasn't successful. I could still feel the tunnel beneath me, calling me down. I'm sorry to say I went back, but that's for another day. I'll update later, but I have to get back to work. I bought a new phone earlier today. Ever since then, my life has taken a weird turn, and I don't know what to make of it, so I'm just going to write it all out. Maybe someone else can make sense of all of this. After I bought the phone, the first thing I did was plug it in to charge. By the time I went to bed, it was at 100%. As I lay in bed with the lights off, I decided to play around with it before going to sleep. I turned it on, squinting in the dark against the bright screen. As soon as it booted up, it began to ring. I jumped, the sudden noise jerking me into alertness. I stared at the screen, confused. The incoming number read 66358, Moon. Having never seen anything like it, and with the phone still chirping in my hand, I slowly put it to my ear and answered, "Hello?" At first it was just a white wash of static. It hummed in my ear like a swarm of angry bees, and then I began to hear a voice. It was deep and sounded slightly robotic. As I pressed my ear to the receiver, I noticed the voice was saying the same thing over and over again.
There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface.
On every third loop, I'd hear something in the background, between sentences. It was this ping, like a radar, followed by someone yelling angrily over static. Dumbfounded, I lowered the phone and disconnected the call. What the hell? What was that all about? Just as the screen dimmed, it suddenly lit up again. I had received a text message. It was from the same odd jumble of numbers and letters. 66358, Moon. Hesitantly, I opened the text. It was a picture. I squinted and enlarged the image. It looked like it was taken at night, outside somewhere. The screen was black except for 3 blurry orbs of blue light hovering in the distance. They were slightly spaced apart and in no discernible formation. Below the image were 4 words, "Beware the blue lights." I closed the phone and placed it on the bed beside me. I felt uneasy in the darkness. It was all just so strange. What was all this? I rolled over and stared at the wall. Maybe I'd return the phone in the morning, or ask them to change my number. Wrong numbers were bad enough, but this was just weird. Suddenly, the phone began to ring again. I snatched it up and blinked against its bright display. Same number. "Hello?" I barked, an edge in my voice. Again, that robotic low voice.
There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface.
Right as I was about to hang up, something changed. The voice stopped and was replaced by the sound of heavy breathing. I listened for a couple of seconds, the sound loud in my ear. "Is someone there?" I asked cautiously. The breathing suddenly stopped, a sharp pull of air, then...
"You could hear me?"
The voice was thin and sounded very far away. "Who the hell is this?" I demanded. A garble of static, then yelling, the same voice still sounding very far away.
Stay away from the blue.
The call disconnected as the white noise overwhelmed the line. "What the fuck?" I muttered, sitting up. I realized my heart was racing. My phone chirped, announcing a new text. I paused. The number was different. This one read 66358, REZ. I wiped my sweaty palms on the sheet and opened the text. It was another picture, and when I saw it, my breath died on my lips. It was a picture of my apartment building. Beneath the picture was one word in all caps: stop. I sprang from the bed and raced to my window. I peered out into the darkness, a trickle of sweat running down my spine. Was someone out there watching me? Why? What was happening? My phone rang from the bed. I turned and saw its light between a tangle of sheets. I walked over and picked it up. It was from the first number, 66358, Moon. Should I ignore it? Who was so desperately trying to reach out to me? I shot a glance at the window and answered, "Who is this? Are you watching me?" A wave of static and then that same thin voice, distant across the line.
Get me out of here.
The man was taking deep breaths between words, like he was in pain. I heard something bang around, followed by the ping noise 3 or 4 times. Then the voice returned.
Please, you have to help me.
His voice rose and fell, like it was being filtered through some kind of machine. I heard a hiss of steam through the static, and then the ping returned. "Where are you? What is going on?" I asked, trying to stay in control of my voice. The voice was so far away now that I had to close my eyes and focus all my concentration to hear.
I'm by the lights.
It was cut off and my ears filled with the familiar robotic loop.
There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface. There's death on the surface.
I hung up. I stood in the darkness, sweating. I knew what was coming next. New text message from 66358REZ. I didn't want to look at it, but morbid curiosity got the best of me. It was another picture. I brought the phone to my face, the image dark and blurry. When I realized what it was, I stumbled back against the wall, heart slamming into my chest, my eyes wide. It was a picture of me, taken seconds ago, standing in the middle of my bedroom in the dark. It looked like it had been taken from my closet. I tore my eyes from the screen to my closet door and saw that it was cracked slightly. I could feel something watching me from the slit of darkness, and I was paralyzed with overwhelming fear. My mind screamed at me with furious urgency to get away, but I couldn't move. Suddenly, a blue flash erupted from the slit of darkness, and I sank to my knees, gasping for air. I felt a presence leave the room, a rush of energy that had been holding me in place. I turned on the lights and immediately powered down my phone. I grabbed my keys and bolted from my apartment. I drove to the nearest hotel, got a room, and have locked myself inside. I'm sitting now on the side of my bed. The phone is on the small coffee table across the room. It's still off. I haven't dared turn it back on. I keep thinking I see flashes of blue light in the sky, but it might just be my paranoia. I don't know what was in my room and I don't want to find out. I just have to keep the phone off. Oh fuck. It's ringing again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching my video, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. And yes guys, my tooth did get removed and I did make a very fast recovery. Well, sort of fast recovery. I had to make a Friday video for you guys, or Saturday video, where my time is, it is 12 o'clock, but I did have to make a video for you guys just because I love you guys and I hate skipping out on you guys and giving lame-ass excuses. I know a tooth being pulled really isn't a lame-ass excuse, but since I did make a pretty fast recovery, I really wanted to do a video for you guys. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you all are having a really great Friday. I love all you guys to death, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.